Yes, thank you very much, Sean. And once again, a very big welcome to all of our attendees out there. Those of you who are joining us from FEM, IOPSA, as well as SIOSH members, we really appreciate it. And we want to say thank you very much for the feedback that we've had from you in this past week with regards to the training that you would like to see in the year 2020. And please, if any of you would still like to send through that information, please do it. Any feedback that we get from you really is going to make us just put in some training programs, toolbox talks, or even some more online content for you guys out there, really to bring health and safety to you so that it makes it a lot easier for everybody out there. At the same time, please don't forget that if you have any questions or queries, please reach out to us so that we can get in touch with you. Obviously, it does take some time to get back to everybody, but really all these emails, we are getting back to them as soon as we can. Generally, within the week, we will be replying to you. We'd like to say thank you once again for this past year to FEM, IOPSA, as well as SIOSH for accrediting this with 1 CPD point, and obviously our hosts, FEM and the Institute of Plumbing SA, for bringing these toolbox talks to everybody. Now, this morning's toolbox talk that we're going to discuss is vehicle safety, and in particular, driving when it is raining. And that is because obviously rain has started. We've had some freak storms that have happened even out where we stay out in the northwest. A lot of guys telling me from Gauteng as well, we've had some bad storms. KZN as well, we know that you guys have been on the news. And then obviously Cape Town, we haven't heard too much from you guys, but even if it is just normal rain, there are still dangers. So we are not talking about heavy storms or hail, even just rainy days can become dangerous when we are on the road. So let's chat about that, especially for those of you who are driving in these conditions. Obviously, work does not stop. When it rains, well, we're out there, we're driving to our clients, and we're making sure that we try and get as much work done as possible. The rain should not deter us from work unless we are doing hazardous work, such as working on roofs, and obviously we would not work in inclement weather during that time. If you're working with electrical things outside, also, please don't work with that out in the rain. But very importantly, driving while in rainy conditions is dangerous unless we take corrective measures. Now, it's not just ourselves driving the car or even truck drivers who are exposed to dangerous conditions. Everybody that is using the road will be endangered by unique threats that are present on the road condition. Now, for one, we have dangerous driving. So only you yourself would know if you are driving dangerously or not. What about the conditions of the road? Well, sometimes the actual road itself becomes a dangerous condition, especially in some of the areas we live, because the roads just are not maintained correctly. But then the other things, the environment around us, these can become dangerous conditions. And that affects not just road users in cars or trucks, as we mentioned, but even motorbikes, those pedestrians who are walking on the roads. Everybody has the exposure to this type of danger. So we need to be aware of these more vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists, and even guys who are riding motorbikes. They have to travel on these roads in very dangerous conditions. Obviously, it's a lot more safer in a vehicle, but at the same time, depending on how we drive, it can either become dangerous or we can prevent serious injuries and potential accidents from occurring. So let us just take a look at some of these things and the contributing factors that go along with dangerous driving or dangerous conditions, especially under bad weather conditions or even normal weather conditions of just normal rain. So some of the contributing factors that lead to incidents and accidents. Rain obviously will affect your visibility. You're not going to be able to see 100% clearly right outside of your windscreen. You're not going to be able to see very far distances. Also, road awareness. Because you are now trying to focus and concentrate while driving, you are not 100% aware of everything happening around you. And I'm being general. Many of you out there probably took advanced driving courses. Many of you have just naturally have got a good talent for good driving. But for many of us, when driving under a difficult situation like in the rain, we tend to start focusing a little bit more and more on where we're going and how we are driving, and not so much the people around us. Now, this will affect the ability to control your vehicle. Well, why do we say that? Well, a lot of us do not adjust our driving habits for rainy conditions. So if it was not raining, we would drive the same as if it was raining. Now we can see why that would be very dangerous. Taking corners, our speed, our following distance, all of that needs to be adjusted. Otherwise, accidents can result. Even if we are traveling too fast, now when we say too fast, we are not saying breaking the speed limit. Remember, we want to drive with law as well as with principle. Now, what is the difference? Well, when you see a sign that says 120 kilometers an hour, you know that the limit is 120. So you drive 120 kilometers an hour. However, if you see that there's a potential incident or accident ahead of you, traffic is slowing down, somebody's running across the road, whatever it is that you see ahead of you, do you adjust your driving habits on principle, saying it's law that on this road I am allowed to drive 120 kilometers an hour, but there is a potential that if I continue doing this speed, there could be an accident. So principle will tell you rather slow down to a safer traveling speed in order to avoid a potential accident. Now we need to drive under principle continuously, and that means you almost have to drive for others around you, including the weather conditions. So driving too fast in this instance, we are not saying exceeding the speed limit, we are saying potentially going the speed limit may be too fast under the circumstances. Now only you would be able to understand the circumstances that you are in at that time, which calls for being aware of the road users, the road conditions, as well as the environment around us. But very importantly, the health of our vehicle or the safety of our vehicle is also very important. So we'd like to ask the question, when last have you checked your vehicle? Checking the tires, the brakes, the windscreen, your lights, all of the things that are safety features on your car in order to make sure that you get from one place to another safely. But even under difficult situations or inclement weather situations such as heavy rain, even just normal rain, would you still arrive there safely? So the smoothness of your tire, making sure that your brakes are in good condition to be able to slow down your vehicle, and then that you can see through your window, that there are no obstructions, and that your lights are clearly working. Obviously, during rain, we'd want to keep our lights on, that our indicators are working, and that we are actually using all of these safety features in our vehicle. Now, back in June, we also had a road accident or a road safety toolbox talk on how to make sure that we look out for incidents and accidents that could occur on our roads at all times. And we had a few statistics for you. We also mentioned road rage and those 10 things that we could do to stop road rage from happening, because it is one of the big causes of incidents and accidents actually happening on our roads. Now, we obviously don't want to give you the same information, but we do want to give you some reminders about what we discussed back then, especially when it came to the South African Automobile Association and what they mentioned. So just as a reminder, we always want to buckle up and put our phones down. Sending a cell phone text or making a call on a handheld device while driving, for one, is against the law. Now, we say that, but we are seeing an increased number of road users doing both. We are driving, we are using the cell phone. In fact, this is just increasing the amount of road deaths happening on our roads each year. Now add rain to the situation, or we can see that this just compounds the severity of what is actually happening, and this is what we want to try and avoid. So the AA gave us a very good piece of advice. Driving while unfocused is one of the leading causes of road accidents, and studies show that if you are using your cell phone while driving, you are 4 times more likely to be involved in an accident than if you were not using your phone. So we can avoid road accidents by what we do. Now, if you like me, when I'm driving on the road, I can point out the mistakes of every other person on the road, and I think it's a habit that a lot of us might have. But try to focus on how you are driving is extremely important. None of us are perfect, so we're going to make mistakes, but what we want to essentially try and do is just make sure that we're in the right frame of mind before driving. Don't drive when you are stressed. Certainly do not drive when you are under pressure, because that will accelerate certain things, especially the speed of your car and potentially trying to get work done while driving. And this is why phone calls are often taken. So if you can, try and get a Bluetooth device into your vehicle, connect it through to your radios, or even a hands-free kit in your car, if at all possible. And this is a suggestion coming from us: if at all possible, do not use your phone while driving, even on a hands-free kit. Now, according to law, you are allowed to drive with a hands-free kit, but remember, we are governed by laws as well as principles. Now, the law of South Africa says you can drive while you are using a cell phone on a hands-free kit. So you're not actually driving with it in your hand or putting it up to your ear. But principle would tell us that it is still a distraction while you are driving. You are focused on what is being said, and you are focused on what to say. You might also be focused on thinking about what needs to happen in order for you to continue this conversation, or what is happening in and around your working environment while under that conversation, which means to a degree you are going to be distracted. So law would tell us, do not be distracted. Principle will say to us, well, even if it is possible, try not to take any phone calls whatsoever. And that is obviously left up to you, the individual. We won't break the law, but what principles govern our life when it comes to the safety of ourselves as well as the safety of those around us? And this is where it comes to be a behavioral-based safety program. And this can be undertaken by each one of you individually, as well as for those of you who are companies. We have the minimum requirements of the law, but what are we doing in order to increase our standard? Make sure that we hold to a higher standard of health and safety, and not just minimum compliance. So here are a few tips for driving in the rain. For one, be safe, drive smart. When we are driving behind someone, we generally say that you need the 3-second rule. So 3 seconds behind a person. Now, 3 seconds is not a lot of time, but it is quite a big distance between you and the person in front of you. But if it is raining, rather increase that 3-second rule to between 5 and 6 seconds in order to maintain a safer distance, because it is more difficult to slam on brakes and come to a complete stop while the roads are wet than when the roads are dry. Now, I mention that because it might not be raining at the time, but the road might be wet, so this piece of advice would still come into play. If it is raining, slow down. Simple as that. Just drive a little bit slower, but never use your brakes suddenly. Obviously, this can force the car to start skidding, and you could still create an accident or bump into the person in front of you, or perhaps the person behind you would be able to contact your car as well. If you find that oncoming vehicles are overtaking from the opposite direction and you will not be able to slow down or move over safely, just again, slow down, be prepared, and move over to the shoulder of the road if it's possible. Now, we just want to mention that only make sure you move over to the shoulder of the road if it is safe to do so. Remember, you must be able to see at least 150 meters ahead of you clearly, because it's very quick that you're going to get to 150 meters. So take a look for any taxis that are driving in the yellow lanes or on the shoulders, pedestrians perhaps standing there, or stationary vehicles that might be there. So a lot of thinking, a lot of things happen around going through situations like this, which means driving while distracted is going to limit the response that you have in a dangerous situation. And that could be the seconds between life and a potential fatality on our road. Then very importantly, the very first rain of every season obviously brings out all the oils and everything that is basically been spewed onto the roads. And this now starts coming up through the tar, and it will make it extremely slippery. So please be aware of oil patches. For one, do not panic. Do not jam on your brakes. So don't slam the brakes down. Just steer through it. And in most cases, these patches will be a smaller patch, especially if it's on the highways. This is obviously caused from trucks or cars that have not maintained their vehicles, and oil will constantly come down. Now, it's not a long stretch that this will happen, but do not panic. Just try and steer through it. Do not use your brakes at this stage or slam on your brakes at this stage. Rather allow the car to roll through it, but do not use the accelerator either. So you've got to be very careful while driving under this situation, especially after the rains, which will mix that oil in the water, making a slippery surface for everyone. Always change to a lower gear before you take a bend, especially a sharper bend. And this is because it will slow down the vehicle, but you will also have a lot more control over the vehicle. Using your brakes may allow the car to skid out. So your speed should be at the lowest when you enter that bend with both hands on the steering wheel, and then you accelerate after the bend, out of the bend. This will give you a lot more control when taking any bends or any corners. Obviously, we do not want to do this as if we are Dakar rally racers or in the Formula One. We want to do it so that we keep ourselves safe, our car in good conditions, as well as those around us in a safe condition as well. And especially when it comes to rain, do we want to have two hands on the steering wheel in case of aquaplaning or the car losing control. We will be able to steer out of that situation. Then please turn on your headlights. Make sure that you can be seen. Be careful of other road vehicles behind you or in your blind spots because they are especially difficult to see, especially when there's rain all around you. And when it's heavy rain, sometimes you can't even see the car behind you. Never mind what's going on in front of you. So during these times, again, we just want to remind you, there are laws, but there's also a principle. Please drive rather using a principled manner of driving. Then use low beams instead of high beams. We do not want to blind the person in front of us. I don't know if some of you are driving with fog lights on your vehicle. The reason for the fog light is so that you can keep your low beams on and have your fog light on, which doesn't make it blinding in front of you. And this, when there's mist, especially after summer rain, that mist will actually just turn into like a bright light if you put your headlights on high beam, and then you won't be able to see either. So low beams are much better, or use the fog lights if you do have them. Then wait a short time after the rain begins. I'm not talking about minutes or hours, just a few seconds after the rain begins, just before you use your windscreen wipers, because your windscreen wiper blades may smear. And that is because of little particles of debris, insects, or whatever is on your windscreen. And this might smear it, also losing a little bit of visibility just for a few seconds. But again, those few seconds may mean the difference between life and a potential accident. So lastly, be extra careful during the first half hour after rain begins. And this is again because of grime or oil on the road surfaces that obviously do not mix with the water, but these will try and mix, but it will make it extremely slippery. So just as a reminder for all of you out there, our roads are very dangerous, especially under wet conditions. So if you can, take the pledge, buckle up, do not text and drive, do not call and drive, do not drink and drive, obey the speed limit and drive under principle. Put safety first. Now the AA have done this, many organizations, Arrive Alive have done this, but let the institutions do what they do, but us to actually accept what they do and practice it. Make sure we are driving safely, not just for ourselves, but for those around us as well. So as a reminder, the free toolbox talks every Tuesday morning. We'd like to encourage you to constantly join them. Next week will be our second last Toolbox Talk, and on the 3rd of December, we have our final Toolbox Talk for this year. And then we look forward to seeing or speaking to more of you in the 2020 year. But if you do want to know more, or if you would like to send your comments of what you would like to see and hear, or even participate in the new year, why not reach out to us, chris@ohss.co.za, safety@iopsa.org, and info@ohss.co.za. And please let us know what you would think needs to be done for the safety industry. Some free courses that we'd like to give away, but obviously we want to give it away for what you want. We don't want to give something that does not add value to you. So please, FEM, IOPSA members, as well as SIOSH members, please reach out to us so that we can give as much information to the institutes as possible to see what we can drive for 2020. So we look forward to seeing you next week on the topic monitor and review. And this is going to be wrapping up our year of OHS. We're just going to look at what should we monitor over the next few weeks, what should be reviewed before next year, and what can you do now to prepare for your safety programs of 2020. So once again, thank you very much from all of us at OHSS. On behalf of FEM, IOPSA, and SIOSH, thank you very much for being members, and we'd like to hand it over now to you, Sean. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. We do have no questions for this morning, so I will go ahead and end the session off. Thanks for taking the time out to join us this morning. And then, Chris, thanks for taking the time out to actually prepare these sessions for us. Guys, I am going to go ahead and end the session off now. Please remember the survey on the way out and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.